You know, like Malcolm X said, black women are the most disrespected women on the planet. But ironically, in all likelihood, they quite literally birth all of humanity. What up, y'all? It's your boy Home Team here. I'm back at it with another video of African history, culture, and worldview. And today we're going to talk about the entire history of African women. Now, of course, we can't sum up the entire history of African women all in one video, but I'm sure enough going to try. Now, why am I doing this? Well, because they're worth it. African women are very diverse, and their history is diverse as well. Now, I just don't want to talk about the general history of African women and their role in a given African society, but I also want to talk about the idea of women in African society and their role within those societies. So again, of course, I can't talk about all African women throughout African history, so this video is going to be about the most popular documented women in African history, and even in mythology. So let's talk about politics and government. What were some of the roles that African women played throughout African politics and government? Let's begin with Queen Tiye. Queen Tiye was an Egyptian queen. She wielded a great deal of power during both her husband's and son's reigns. Being wise, intelligent, strong, and fierce, she was able to gain the respect of foreign dignitaries. Foreign leaders dealt directly through her on many occasions concerning Egyptian matters. She continued to play an active role in foreign relations and was the first Egyptian queen to have her name recorded on official acts. The thing about Egypt, which is typical amongst African civilizations, is that Egypt was a matrilineal system, meaning the royal lineage was carried by the women. You were royalty not because of who your father was, but because of who your mother was. I find it very interesting that Michelle Obama bears a striking resemblance to Queen Tiye, and the position they both held on the world stage was second to none. Queen Tiye existed in one of the most powerful states on the planet, and Michelle Obama, of course, exists in probably the most powerful state known to man. Talk about history repeating itself. Next, we have Queen Nzinga. Queen Nzinga was a 17th century queen of the Ndongo and Matamba kingdoms of modern-day Angola. Ironically enough, because of the matrilineal system of African civilizations, Queen Nzinga had somewhat of a struggle for legitimacy. Why? Because in layman's terms, even though her father was a king, her mother was pretty much a side chick. But her father absolutely adored her. Queen Nzinga was very intelligent. Her political and military brilliance was the best in the region and well documented. She was able to manipulate Portuguese and Mbundu politics in order to gain power and maintain the legitimacy of her rule. The Portuguese on many occasions tried to kill her and failed. As long as Queen Nzinga lived, the Portuguese couldn't gain a stronghold over the region. Today, a street in Angola is named after her, and a huge statue of her exists in Luanda, Angola. She has become a symbol of resistance and strength for all of Angola. Now let's talk about some pioneers within African society. Usually when we discuss builders of nations, we tend to think about men, but there have been several women who were builders, movers, and shakers within African society. Let's take Queen Guti, for example. Queen Guti was an Ethiopian woman, believed by some to be from the Sidamo people of Ethiopia. She completely laid waste to the Aksumite Empire, conquering the region, and nearly killed all of the Aksumite royal family. Ibn Hakel, the Arab scholar, has this to say about Queen Guti. The country of the Habasha has been ruled by a woman for many years now. She has killed the king of the Habasha, who was called Hadane. Until today, she rules with complete independence in her own country and the frontier areas of the country of the Hadana and the southern part of the Habashi. Nobody even really understands why she laid Aksum to waste, but she started a completely new dynasty and shifted the history of Ethiopia itself. Now, from a misogynist point of view, people are likely to dismiss this history, simplifying her motives, likely calling her the first angry black woman in history. Next, we have Queen Amina of the Hausa people. Queen Amina was a queen of the Hausa people in northern Nigeria. She is credited as being the first person to establish government amongst the Hausa. She had vassal states paying tribute to her, and she is widely credited with building the earthen walls that surrounded Hausa cities. Next, we have the founder of Timbuktu itself. By the 12th century, Timbuktu became a celebrated center of learning and commercial establishment. Timbuktu was world-renowned and was a center of learning for the medieval world. Timbuktu is probably the most popular ancient African city, and it was founded by a woman named Tin Abutu, or Buktu. Timbuktu was originally just a seasonal settlement, but Buktu turned it into a center for commercial goods from the desert. Most people don't even know that one of Africa's most famous cities was founded by a woman. Now let's talk about beauty. Of course, we have the world-renowned Queen Nefertiti. Till this day, the world can't stop talking about her. But some other Africans you might not even heard of was Princess Inyango. She was hailed and championed as the most beautiful in all her kingdom, the kingdom of the Gomba, which is believed to have been located around northern Ghana. In many ways, she is a pioneer as she is the mother of the Maasai people. Princess Inyango was so beautiful and so valuable to her kingdom that her father didn't even want her to get married. That, of course, didn't sit well with Inyango, so she decided to go be great somewhere else, taking demand of her own agency and carrying the narrative of her own story. And let's not forget Sia, the beautiful virgin girl of the Wagadu Empire. Sia was a Soninka girl who was commissioned to be sacrificed for the survival of Wagadu itself, according to Soninka oral history, as a great Beta wanted the most beautiful virgins at the time. Her fiance Mahdi wasn't having it, and wasn't about to let that happen. And he was willing to allow the whole empire to be crushed, just so he can save his beautiful future bride. When it comes to the drivers of movements and the spirit of resistance, African women have always been at the forefront and were a very present force. Yaa Asantewaa, Queen Mother of the Ashanti, led one of the most famous rebellions called the War of the Golden Stool. The British wanted this famous golden stool, but of course the Ashanti held it in high regard, and it could not be in the hands of any foreigner. The Ashanti men were hesitant to cause any conflict, but Yaa Asantewaa quickly put them in check and called them out. And as we all know, the British never did get that stool. Probably one of the greatest moral victories in African history. The spirit of Yaa Asantewaa runs through the blood of many black women across the African diaspora. Women who just wasn't having it anymore. Women who simply said no. Now let's go southward toward the Congo Empire, one of the martyrs of Congo history. Starting an African revival and renaissance was a woman named Kimpa Vida. So Christianity in the Congo was spreading amongst the elites of the Congo Empire, but at the same time the Catholic Church and the Portuguese were mischievous in their dealings with Congolese people, trying to attain power and wealth. Kimpa Vida apparently saw right through that and sought to reimagine Christianity from an African perspective to ward off European manipulation. She literally flipped the script. Her prophetic voice began teaching that Jesus and other Christian figures were actually from the Congo Empire. Congo at this time was in a brutal state of civil war, and her manipulation of the religious and political scene gained her many followers. Of course, this didn't sit well with the Congo elite who wanted to control the masses, so Kimpa Vida was tried according to Congolese law and was deemed a witch and executed. Kimpa was very influential and very young within the Congo Empire. Probably one of the most famous African women in the ancient world were the Kandaki queens of ancient Kush. Queen Amina was arguably the bravest woman in African history, as she took on Rome. After the Romans conquered Egypt, they sneakily tried to make Kush a vassal state of some sort, by levying a tax on Nubians living in Egypt. Queen Amina wasn't having it and attacked the Romans in Egypt and cut the head of an Augustus statue and brought it back to Meroe. She buried it in her temple so that her people can symbolically walk all over it. The Romans, of course, didn't take too kindly to this and went back and forth in battles with the Kushites. Eventually a treaty was signed and the Kushites gained everything they wanted. The strategic success of Queen Amina militarily and politically against the Romans was remarkable and virtually unheard of at that time. Another Kandaki queen of Kush was Queen Amina. She was seemingly tolerant of other religions in her kingdom, as she is believed to have allowed one of her servants to go to Jerusalem. The history of the Kandaki queens of Nubia is very diverse. We see the bravery and strength of Queen Amina, and we see the soft and gentle spirit of tolerance with Queen Amina. All of these queens were well known to have actually fought in battle according to Greek sources. Their ancient reputation has lasted even until this day. So let's talk about the beginning. Who were amongst the first women documented in history? Well, the first documented woman in history came from African religion. Her name was Aset, and her main temple was in Nubia. She is among the earliest documented gods in human history. She was the ideal mother of nature and magic. She was so popular that she began to be worshipped in Egypt, Rome, and Greece as Isis. The Kushites called her the Great Lady of Kush. She was adored by the Kushites, and in a healing text, Aset said of herself the following: "I am the Nubian, and I have descended from heaven." In this African context, Aset comes bringing with her the rich blackness of the heavens, of fertility, and of healing magic. The color of blackness, of course, taking on a very different connotation to ancient African people. Blackness meant fertility, life, and resurrection, amongst many other things. Given this ancient African historical context, Aset was quite literally the first representation of black girl magic on our planet, in which all other black women descend. The presence of the matrilineal system all throughout Africa, and the mention of one of the first gods in African religion being a woman, is very significant. It's as though the Africans knew that their woman birthed humanity. It was as if they knew about mitochondrial Eve. They seemed to deeply respect this and recorded it. They seemed to have believed that their women were literally magic, starting with nothing, yet creating everything. As we can see from the history of our black women, their history is very diverse. They clearly don't exude just one monolithic quality. They exemplify beauty, intelligence, bravery, and strength. But more importantly, they can be soft, kind, loving, and even vulnerable. Given the dark ages of blackness in America in our 21st century world, black women have had to be strong and brave, despite their humanness, despite their own fears and securities. Black women have proven they can rise to the occasion and be carriers of the moral high ground, even when faced with total death and destruction. Because they were placed in such a position in our 21st century, we sometimes are not able to see their softness, because they constantly have to protect themselves from the immoral onslaught on their minds and their bodies. In a weird way, the burden of black women is not that they're the most disrespected people on the planet. The burden of black women is that they were the first women on this planet giving birth to humanity in a world that has largely forgotten where it's come from. But I'm all out, guys. If you want full access to full-blown African history lessons and sources, you can check out my site on patreon.com. It's in the description box below. I've talked about the Wagadu Empire, the Mali Empire, and we're currently on the Songhai Empire. Support the home team. It's your boy, home team. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.